Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and welcome to the second video in the Planning a Quilt series. And today we'll be cutting fabric into pieces to put into our blocks. So I hope you stay with me and I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to cut your fabric. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I am ready to cut my fabric, and I have it all right here. It's all pressed and ready to go, and I have my rotary cutter. I have a bunch of different rulers up here, and I have my directions. So I have borders that I want to cut out of these two fabrics, the teal and the aqua. So I'm going to cut those first, and the instructions are to cut them at the width of the fabric, so I don't need to cut off the length. So that will make it a bit easier. So I'm going to set the white aside. I've got my other quilting tools here. I've got straight pins, I've got a measuring tape, I got a couple of long rulers and scissors, and a scissor sharpener up here if I need that. But I'm going to use my rotary cutter, and for my borders I'm going to use my 24 by 6 inch ruler. So I'm going to put the others aside, and I'm going to start with my teal. This is the dark fabric, and if you want to pre-wash your fabrics, go ahead and do that. I did pre-wash this piece. It didn't really have a lot of excess dye in it, which was good. This is the piece I was worried about. The other two I did not pre-wash. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this out, and I'm going to make myself a straight edge, a squared off edge. So I am going to trim off just a bit. As you can see, I think down here I just have about an 1/8 of an inch of fabric here, and I have about an inch up here. So this was not cut straight from the store. So I'm going to toss that, and now I'm going to flip this over. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to cut from the left side of the fabric and move my cup of tea out of the way, and make sure my fabric is flat. So for my teal fabric, I need 4 strips that are width of the fabric by 2.5 inches wide, and that'll be for the inner border. So I'm going to go ahead and measure and cut those. And I got some stray threads here from the rest of the fabric, so we'll just go ahead and cut that and then set it aside. I've got this glow line tape. If you want to mark your rulers with that, you can use that. This one is at 1.5 inches, so I'm going to move that. And you can mark it in several different places. And this is just a quick way to know that you're in the right spot when you lay your ruler down. There's another piece up here. I'll move that to 2.5. And that way, as I go along, I know that's the spot I need to hit. So I'm going to, it looks straight. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut my strips. So, okay, so now I've got all my borders. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of the teal fabric that I need. So let me lay these all stacked together and lay them to the side. And I also need 36 4.5 inch squares and 36 2.5 inch squares. So if you have your calculator, you can figure out how much you can get per strip, or you can use the Kaufman app. Okay, so on my Kaufman app, I want to know how many 4.5-inch squares I can get out of a strip of fabric. So we're going to do the piece count, and the size to be cut is 4.5 by 4.5, and the size of the fabric, the width is 42, or let's do the width at 4.5 and the length 42. Let's see what that will get. Okay, so I can get 9 pieces out of a strip. I need 36, so I'll need 4 strips then. You can also do it with a regular calculator if you don't have the app. So 4.5-inch strips. I need 4 of them. There's 1. Don't forget to don't forget to close your rotary cutter when you lay it down. I sometimes forget to do that, which is not a good habit to have. Okay, now I'm going to stack all of these strips up and set them aside, and then I'll cut them into 4.5-inch squares here in a minute, but I want to get all of the big strips cut first. It's just a personal preference. There's no rules here. It's just a all perfect personal preference. And then I need 36 2.5-inch squares, which I'm guessing would be 2 strips, since that's half the size of the others, and I need the same number. So once again, I can double check on my pieces to my piece count, and I'm just going to change the size to 2.5. And change that to 2.5 and calculate number of pieces. I can get 16 per strip. Just would have wasted a little bit of fabric. Okay, so 3 of those. And then I need to cut fabric for the binding. So let me stack these up and lay them on top of the other ones. And then the binding, I'm doing my binding teal, so I need 6 strips with the fabric at 2 1/4. And I'm actually gonna cut mine at 2 1/8. 2 1/4 is a little bit too much, but 2 1/8 is just about right. So I'm going to 2 1/8. So I'm going to do that for 6 strips. So the calculations that I made when I worked on making a plan for this quilt, I have this amount extra. So if that's kind of short for you, if you're a little concerned about not having enough fabric, add a 1/4 yard or more to your purchase for each color, and that may give you a little more sense of comfort knowing that you've got some that you can go back to if you make a mistake somewhere. So I'm going to put my binding strips, and if you want to label everything that you've got, you know, label your binding and your borders. So this is my binding. I have my borders up there, and so now I can go ahead and start cutting. Whoops, I forgot one. Gotta add that to it. So Okay, I'm going to start back on my instructions, just go straight down. I need 36 4.5-inch squares. So here are my 4.5-inch strips. And I'm going to start cutting from the selvage edge, and I'm going to do 2 strips at a time. So I'm going to line these up. I'll move that ruler out of the way because I don't want to use that one. And I want to make sure all my raw edges are even. Or as even as I can get them. Okay, and then I'm going to cut that selvage off, and I have a 5-inch ruler here. I'm going to use this. And cut that off. Swing it around and then cut everything at 4.5. And I'm just going to keep measuring and cutting. And there's 16, and then I have these 2 pieces. I'm going to set them aside. I will probably use those. I'll need to open them and press them to cut anything out of them though. So that's why I'm setting them aside for now. So I've got 16 pieces. That means I'll get 32 total out of these 2 strips, and then I'll need these folded pieces to get the rest. So cut off selvage again. So I'm going to go press these because I need 4 more squares, and so I'm going to get them out of these folded ends. So this is one of the reasons I always start cutting from the selvage edge instead of the folded edge, because if I'd have cut that fold, I may not have had enough fabric. This is usable fabric here. I would have had like 2 pieces like this, only they'd be 2 pieces instead of 1, and then I would have been short. So I'm going to go press these and then come back and cut them. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off the end. My furnace is getting ready to kick on, so let's see if I can get this done before it kicks on full force. Alright, now 4.5. Okay, now I have all my 4.5-inch squares. Okay, so now I have my 2.5-inch strips. I've got the 3 that I cut for the 2.5-inch squares, and I'm going to go ahead and trim off the selvage. And then turn it around and cut 36 strips. So each cut will give me 4, 5, 6. So give me 6. And I gotta find the right line on my ruler. 2.5-inch squares. Okay. Now there's other ways you can cut those if you want. Now I have, if you want longer strips left over, I have short strips. What you could do is just cut 2 strips and then cut the extras that you need from the 3rd strip, and you'd have a longer piece left over. So there's different ways to cut these, however you want to do them. So I'm going to stack these up. So now I'm down to the aqua, as I've got all of my teal cut. I've got my borders and my binding, which is here, and then my 4.5 inch squares and my 2.5 inch squares. So those are all done. So what I'm going to do, I've got a plastic box that I keep my projects in, so I'm going to go ahead and put my cut fabric in the box, kind of keep it out of the way. And set that to the side. And now I need to do the aqua. So for the borders on the aqua, I need 5 width of strip, 4.5 inches wide. So this one looks like it was cut pretty straight, but I'm going to make certain, because these were cut with scissors, they were not cut with a rotary cutter. So it is pretty straight, but still a little bit off. Okay, so we're going to flip this around. Okay, so my instructions say 5 width of fabric strips that are 4.5 inches wide. So this will give me my borders. And of course you can cut your borders from the length of the fabric if you want. This just saves fabric. You don't have to purchase as much unless you don't mind piecing, which this will still have to be pieced, so it's not saving me time that way. Stack all of those up and fold them and set them aside. And now I need 9 4.5 inch squares, so that should be 1 strip. That's 4.5 inches wide. And then I need 36 2.5 inch squares, and I know from calculating on the teal fabric that I need 3 2.5 inch strips to get 36 2.5 inch squares. But I don't know that there's really any. And then I'm going to go back and cut my 4.5 inch squares. And I just have one piece here. So I'm going to cut off the selvage edge and turn this way. So I need 9 4.5 inch squares. So this is 4 and 8, and then this one I'm going to press open and get my 9th square out of. Okay. Alright, so I've got all of those, and then I need my 2.5 inch squares. I'm going to line them all up. Okay. Like I was saying, there's more than one way to cut your fabric, so let me show you. I'm going to set this one aside. Here's another way to cut them. I'm just going to cut 2 strips at a time instead of 3. Okay, there's 32. So these 2 can be cut. Okay, so let me press these. Okay, so this should be 34. So I just need 2 more squares. So there they go, and then I have this long piece left over, and I can save that for later. So there's my scraps along with this. So all of this is leftover fabric. So I'm going to set that over there. I'm going to add these pieces to my box. So I got my border and my squares. Light them in there. And I need to cut the white fabric. Okay, so I don't need to cut any borders or anything with the white. I just need 144 2.5-inch squares. Just need to cut 2.5-inch strips and then cut them into squares. So let's see how many strips I need for that. So I can get 16 out of a strip. I need 144. So divide that by 16. Tells me I need 9 strips. So we'll get started on that. So I want to do the same thing. I'm going to square up an end. And for that I need my long ruler. Okay, so I've got the end squared up.
Thanks for watching.
For more quilting ideas, click on the video links, and to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.